Welcome back to the channel, and today I wanted to do a review of the Mosko Moto Outback panniers. I've had these for about 6 months now and use them through the winter and in different conditions, so I wanted to just give an update on what I think about them. When I first got the panniers, I'd done a lot of research and it came down to two choices. It was the Lone Rider panniers or the Mosko Moto. And from a function perspective, they're both pretty similar. However, I did find that the Lone Rider ones, they just looked a bit too tactical. They're all super black, and if you get more editions, then it just starts looking a little bit too military for me. And that's just my personal opinion. So I guess the ultimate choice came down to how it looked for me, which is why I went for the Mosko Moto panniers. And, you know, if I was super rich, I'd probably get a set of both panniers and use them for different things. But I've gone with the Mosko Moto, so let's find out what I think about them. So we know that the Mosko Moto gear is high price tag, it's premium gear, as is the Lone Rider. You know, by the time you add on the pannier rack as well, it's really coming up to a lot of money. But is it worth it? You know, is it worth spending that lot of money to get something that functions well? Let's have a closer look at the Mosko Moto pannier system and the Outback Motortek pannier rack as well. And then I'll come back to you at the end and we'll have a little summary of what we've found. Let's get in a little bit deeper on these panniers and see what they're all about. So when I ordered these, I ordered them with the Outback Motortek panniers. Now these are made of mild steel. They're 18mm. If you want to clamp anything on here, these are 18mm bars, and they went on really nicely. I was quite impressed with those. The main thing you need to make sure is that you thread lock all the attachments into the bike. They do get quite a bit of vibration, so it's well worth thread locking all those attachments. The Outback panniers come in two colour schemes, so there's the blue and black, then I went for the forest green, which I quite like, and it goes pretty well with the bike. As we look at it, we've got some sort of waterproof membrane fabric here, and then we've got fairly heavyweight cordura on the side. What you do notice when you first get the bags is they're pretty stiff. When you're trying to fold them down and you're trying to sort of, you know, get them all cinched in, there's a lot of stiffness in that fabric because it is very thick and abrasion resistant. So over time you find this does get softer and it does improve, which does help you packing the bags up. There was a good question about whether you can put a 35 litre on the exhaust side, and I'm sure you can put a 35 litre on there. It will increase the width of the bike sideways to about 1 metre. Or possibly even 1.5 centimetres by the time you've got the side pockets expanded. So you can expand it, but on measuring it, it is a bit wider. Coming at the bike from the front and the packs, you've got the Molle web system here for adding other Molle packs on, and then you can see here the screw holes. So these are the holes where the screws for the auxiliary pockets go. Can be a little bit of a fiddle getting those in. You've got to get your hand inside, and there are velcro tabs that go over the inside of that, so a little bit of a fiddle, but you know, well worth it. People have been asking about compressibility of these, and if you look on the top, you've got a friction buckle which can be cinched in, so you can really squeeze it that way. And then down the side we've got 4 of these compression buckles. Now these are really nicely made. These were a change in design to metal, and they're pretty smooth on this surface, so they don't catch if the bike does drop, and it slides. And these just unclip like that, so you can see that. And it's quite a nice design, I quite like that. It just goes back in there like that, and then you cinch those up. And you've got 4 of those, so you can do quite a bit of adjustment of this and really sort of cinch it in that way. And then there's one underneath as well, just to cinch it in at the bottom as well. Underneath you've got more Molle webbing, so you can start adding stuff underneath. I mean, you probably sort of add so much that you'll start hitting the ground, but it's definitely quite a lot of stuff. I quite like these pockets on the outside, so these are open to the world, and you can expand those. And if you look at the website, they've got an axe on the inside. I'm not quite that roughy tufty yet. And then there's pockets for the locks inside as well. If you just sort of look a bit further in, there's velcro pockets down there, which you can put the lock in. And then there's more loops on the inside to put attachments and hold stuff in. But I quite like those, probably quite good for flip-flops, waterproofs, anything that you don't really mind getting wet. Closure wise, you've got a roll top on these with an aluminium lock bar. Now the Lone Rider panniers you can lock, and they do have a locking mechanism. With the Mosko Moto ones, you need to actually get a wire lock system, and you can probably use anything, but a wire lock system that will hold this down. Fastening wise, we've got a big clip here, so we've got quite a bit of cinch room here. And expand that. Then on each side we've got another clip which is adjustable, so you undo both of those and then the top unrolls. And then what you've got inside is a big red dry bag. It's like looking into a big fish mouth. I reckon that's a monkfish. What do you reckon? Not sure if that was necessary, but anyway, yeah, so you've got a big bag on the inside and you've got Velcro all the way around the top of this. So I think to get maximum waterproofing, you want to be actually undoing this completely and closing this dry bag independently. Now the dry bag itself, the material is much softer, so it will roll down really nicely, and it's got its own clip to roll it closed as well. I think in general, having that on the top, it'll withstand most rain and most spray, just with the two rolls like that. But I don't think it's going to be completely waterproof like that. It's just not enough tightness in that roll. I've used quite a lot of dry bags over the years for different sports and different activities, and I just don't think it'll have that waterproofness. So definitely, if you want full waterproof, unvelcro this and close the dry bag independently. I added some extra auxiliary pockets on this, which are tacked on the back, and this is the offset pannier set, so got 25 litres on this side and 35 on the other, and because of that this auxiliary pocket is 4 litres and the one on the 35 litre side is 5 litres. Again, the fabric's fairly stiff when you first get it, so you know it needs a little bit of wear to get softer and you can start getting things in a bit more easily, but there's very little, if actually none at all, in terms of expansion here. There's no expansion and no stretch on this, so you do have to be quite careful about what you put in there because it won't stretch. At the bottom of the Aux Pocket you've got an opening here, Velcro opening, which allows a tube to come out from a fluid reservoir, so something like a Camelback or something like that, which will come out here. And underneath you've got a hole which lets you pull down the dry bags. The dry bags have got a loop on the bottom of them, and when you find that you're stuffing it with fairly irregular shaped bits, it can take a little bit of getting in the top here, and you can't just push it down. It just doesn't work when you push it down, so you do need to pull it from the bottom. Taking the panniers off, you've got a clip system in here, so if you look here there's a loop which you just pull, and it's quite a solid click. It's spring loaded and you pull that and the bag will lift up. When you put the bag on, it will give quite a solid click as it goes in, so you know it's locked. I've just loosened the bag, and what I'll do is show you what happens when it locks. So you push it down and it slides onto these parts here, and you push it down and you'll hear the click. So it's a pretty firm click, and you know that is locked on and it's not going to go anywhere when you're riding. In terms of attachment to the bike, the panniers do come with this part here, and this bolts onto the 18mm steel pannier rack. There is quite a bit of room here. It will go onto different size pannier racks, but the standard size is about 18mm, so it will bolt onto those. Now I've loaded these so that they're as close to the centre of the bike as possible, which also makes them lower down, so it's trying to keep that weight more central when you're riding around, rather than at the back end here and then you get the back end of the bike wobbling around. On the back of this it's actually chamfered a bit, so it goes back behind here to give a bit of a lip. Let's have a look at that. So you can see here that there's an edge to this, and then it narrows behind here and it slides onto this part here. The corresponding part on the back of the panniers actually comes with the panniers, so this is pretty tough solid plastic, again with an edge behind here, and this is where the part on the pannier rack fits, and you can see a bit more detail there of the clip mechanism. So that's what holds it in. Looking at that now, it's not actually the biggest bit of plastic in there holding it in, but it does seem to work pretty well. There have been a few questions about whether you could use the 35 litre pannier on the exhaust side on this side, and you know, of course you can, but it will make the bike wider. So let's measure this, and if we're looking at this with the offset panniers on, we've got a total width of about 95 centimetres on that. I guess if you expanded the side pockets a bit more, then you could probably add another 7 to 10 centimetres on that if you're putting stuff in those. So probably about 1 metre to 1 metre and 5 centimetres wide total at its maximum. To answer the question about the width with the 35 on the exhaust side, we can't really measure it from the centre line because it's asymmetric, so it wouldn't be a true representation. So if we measure this here, and the width of the 35 is about 22 centimetres. So if we go to this side and measure from the centre line to the pannier rack, it's 30 centimetres, and if we add on 22, that's going to be 52 centimetres. So it's going to come out, you can see there where 52 centimetres is from the midline. So it will add a bit more to it. Just depends how you want to ride, I suppose, and whether you're going down narrow bits. One other little thing, just a point of detail really, it's more cosmetic, is the Mosko Moto attachments for the pannier rack only came in blue, and I don't really like that. I'd like these to have come in black, and it's purely cosmetic, it's all about vanity, but I just don't think these look very good in blue with this bike and the black stuff around it. So if Mosko Moto do actually watch this, it'd be great to get some of those black holders. So let's have a look at a few of the things that I've found aren't quite as good as I'd want them to be on these panniers. You know, my overall impression is very, very good, but there are just a few things. First thing is there's a lot of clips, a lot of buckles, and when you're cinching things in and cinching things out and trying to create compression or expansion in the panniers, you end up with a lot of loose ends. So it takes quite a bit of fiddling to tie up those loose ends. Each one does have Velcro on the end, and you can roll it up and get it out of the way. But if you imagine doing that, you know, for sort of 6 different buckles on each bag, it can be a little bit of a pain at times. What you do find though is once you've got the bag established, once you've got your kit in it, then the compression side of things does stay roughly the same, so you don't need to be adjusting all the time once you've got that sorted out. The next thing that I found a little bit challenging, I don't think it's, you know, a problem with the bag, and I don't think it's a negative, but because the material they're made of is so strong and it's so abrasion resistant, there really is no give at all in it, there's no stretch. So when you're packing, you do need to make sure that the dry bags, if you've taken them out and you're trying to put them back into the main pannier, you really need to make sure that they're slightly smaller. There's not a lot of room to try and stuff it in unless you've got clothing. I especially found that with things like laptops and computer gear and other hard objects that I want to carry. You've got to be really careful about packing those so that that dry bag does go back in. Another thing that I found is that because of the material and because of the closures, you have to keep it to a certain level. You can't really overstuff the bags. Well, I suppose you could, but it wouldn't keep it waterproof. So to maintain that waterproofness of the dry bag and get the roll top going, you really need to get it the right size, and that does limit the extra amount of gear you can carry. That continues into the main pannier itself. You've got to get those 2 folds over to close it, and what that means is you are limited with the height you can do. But I suppose, you know, you've fixed with those volumes and you can just add stuff on. You can put a dry bag on top on the seat and you can change things around, but you are limited with that volume because it's non-expandable apart from a very small amount. When it comes to gear, I really like stuff that functions well. I like gear that's been researched, that fits the brief and that works well. I like it to be really well made, I like it to be robust, but also I like it to function really well. I don't want to be fiddling around with stuff, and I like it to function well in the environments I go into. And so much of this comes from my history of doing expeditions and expedition medicine and a lot of stuff in the wilderness before I got into off-road biking. So I've got a long history of looking at gear that works and evolving systems that work, and I'm trying to apply that same system to how I motorbike and how I, you know, ride a motorcycle off-road. Let's summarise what I think about the Mosko Moto Outback panniers. I think they're really good. I love them. You know, I like premium gear. I like the way it functions. I like the way it works, and I like the way it looks as well. You know, it feels good having gear like that that you know will do the job. I've taken it on longer journeys. I've been away for quite a few nights using the bags as well. That's not camping, so I think for camping it would need an extra roll bag on top anyway, to put all the camping and cooking gear in. But for nights away, there is plenty of space with the offset pannier system. So that's 60 litres altogether, and then you add on another 9 litres with the auxiliary pocket. So you've got a fair bit of space there to, to play with. So I do like these panniers. I think they work really well. The functionality is good. There are a few minor down points, but I can live with those. They're a nice bit of kit. They're good quality. They are super expensive. One thing I do notice, I was checking on the website again today, is that especially if you're ordering from Mosko Moto EU, they do tend to run out of stock, and I think they have had some issues with their supply chains. So if you do see them in stock online, you probably need to sort of snap them up when they're there rather than waiting. Occasionally they will do special offers. I saw one in autumn last year before I bought mine, and they were offering some money off for pre-orders, but not actually at the time. So I think, it's a bit like Apple products. You're always going to pay a premium price for this premium product. So once again, thank you for watching. Really appreciate your time. I hope this review is useful. If you've got any questions or comments, please post them below. And once again, I'd be really appreciative if you would subscribe. Thanks for watching. See you again. Have fun.